Lincoln's going to explain to us what she did. Make sure, I know you have it all written down on the board, but make sure you say each thing that you did because the people on Google Meet can't see the board.
So I did 35 plus 23, which equals 58, and then this entire triangle is supposed to equal 180, so 180 minus 58 is 122. And then since this is 122, these two are congruent, so this is also 122. So I did 122 plus 27 equals 149, and this triangle is supposed to equal 180, and so I did 180 minus 149, I got 31.
Thank you. Abby, tell us, do you agree or disagree?
I agree.
Yeah, very good. And I want to point out that I like how you told them exactly why you did what you did. Like you said, you added these two together, and then all three of these inside angles are supposed to add up to equal 180. So if these two add up to equal, you can have a seat, thank you, equal 58, to figure out that other one, you do 180 minus 58, which is 122. The only thing I would suggest is actually marking this angle 122 degrees. Every time I find an angle, I go ahead and mark it, but it's measured, and it helps me, see what I'm doing. And then my question is, how come these two angles here are congruent to each other? What relationship do they have?
Because they're vertical.
Yeah, they're vertical angles, so they're congruent. So if this one's 122, this one here is also 122. And then you have another triangle where all three have to add up to 180. So 122 plus 27, subtract it from 180, you get 31. This is the type of work you need to be showing. You need to show me where you add them up, subtract it from 180, and all that good stuff. What questions do you have for us on the bell ringer? All right, so you are supposed to have completed your AMI work on your snow day, on those snow days on AMI day. However, we know that some people don't have internet access and have trouble with Wi-Fi, so we're giving you, I'm giving you an extra day to get your AMI work turned in. But any work you have to turn in for AMI, I'm going to show you everything that's posted and everything you were supposed to have done so you can make sure that you have done everything and that you didn't miss something. Also, some people still need to make up Chapter 5 test from, they were supposed to make it up either Monday or Tuesday, but we had those snow days when we were out for a week and a half. So I'm going to give you today and tomorrow to come in either after school. If you come in after school, you're going to have to let me know because I have tutoring and I can take the test up there with me to the library. So let me know ahead of time if you're going to come after school. Or you can come during advisory, or you can come in the morning before school. So you have today and tomorrow. You can come before school, after school, or during advisory. If you come today after school, let me know ahead of time so I can take the test with me. Tomorrow after school, I won't be able to do it because I have a Scholar Bowl game. Okay, so if we go on to Google Classroom, okay, so let's see, February 8th, we talked about you've earned a day to bring snacks and 15 free minutes at the end of class, and we will discuss what day to do this. We were supposed to discuss that on Tuesday, but, oops, sorry, let me unfreeze it. But since we had those snow days, I didn't want to do it then, and then, us not get to do it because of us being out. So, what day would y'all like to bring a snack and get the last 15 minutes of class free? Would y'all want to do that tomorrow?
What are we doing tomorrow?
Tomorrow we will be finishing notes and then we'll be doing a class activity. Do it Friday. So Friday you have a quiz and then we'll start notes and then so I can stop the notes 15 minutes early and then y'all can have 15 minutes. And that last 15 minutes means you can play on your Chromebook, you can get your phones, you can talk, just as long as you stay in your seat, you're not running wild. So raise your hand if you would like to do it Friday. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, perfect. So Friday, bring you a snack, and you'll get the last 15 minutes of class free. So that's this Friday. So let me write this down, and I will try my best to keep reminding you. Okay. Then we had new material, which was 6.1 day 2 notes. Those were notes we took in class, 6.1 day 2. And then it says your assignment for today is 6.1 practice on Big Ideas Math. There will not be a Google Meet unless you need one for questions or help. Please email me if you have any questions. And then on your 6.1 practice, it told you that you had to make corrections on the ones that you missed. So you had to go through and look at the ones that you missed and write those down and write the correct answers. So that's one of the items that I need is your 6.1 corrections. If you emailed those to me, I will be printing everything off today and getting them. But if you still have it, if you have the paper copy, go ahead and turn that in also, just in case. But just make sure you title it 6.1 corrections on Big Ideas Math. And if you did the corrections on the same paper that you did your work on, that's okay also. Just show me, or, write on there which parts work and which parts are corrections. But you need to turn in 6.1 corrections. That's part of the assignment. If you don't turn in the corrections, you don't get credit for the assignment. So that's one thing is your 6.1 corrections. Another thing is your bell ringer sheet from last week. You should have Monday and Tuesday. Remember, if you're quarantined, you need to either write the word quarantined in the corner of each day or write a Q, and I'll know that means quarantine. All right, it says some people have not completed 6.1 practice. Do that ASAP. Also, some of you have not gone in and made corrections. It was stated in the directions that you need to go in and view the problems you missed and write those down on notebook paper and send those to me. You may title it 6.1 corrections, take a picture, and email it to me. Okay. Then the next day, you had an assignment on Boom Learning. Okay, I have 8 people that's turned that in, 5 that have not turned that in. Okay. So instructions, your assignment is on Boom Learning. You will use your school Google account to log on as a student. Your deck has already been assigned. Any work shown may be emailed to me labeled Boom Learning Activity. You may email me if you have any questions or need help. So if you have any work for the Boom Learning Activity, you can turn that in, but you don't necessarily have to turn in work. All right, Lathan.
So I did that. Did you automatically get my results from it?
It should, yes. If you
Okay,
did it,
so
it'll.
do I just mark it as done?
Yes, yeah, just mark it as done. It automatically sends me your grade. All right, and then you had another assignment. This was on February the 12th. This was, I believe, Friday. It says complete the interactive worksheet. When finished, click finish and click finish and then click on email to my teacher. You'll type in your first name and last name. And then for the group, you'll type in, geometry and either first, third, sixth, or seventh hour and put geometry in there. And then there's my email address. So you just type in all your answers in the boxes and then send it to me. And it automatically grades it and gives you your score.
That worksheet was rigged, Miss Goodman.
Really?
Yeah, because the last one it counted wrong, but I know I did not do it wrong.
Real okay. So will you take a screenshot of it and email it to me and tell me to check it?
Just go into the.
You possibly should be able to go into the worksheet, or just send me an email and say, hey, Miss Goodman, will you please check the types of the worksheet online and check the last problem? Okay. That way I can go in and check it. All right, and then you had a 6.2 assignment for February 17th. This was Monday. I think this is your notes. Yeah, it says, watch this video and take notes on notebook paper. You will need to draw the diagrams as well. The spaceship doesn't have to be exact. You could just draw the 2 triangles. You didn't have to draw the spaceship. This will be the next page of our notes, which I think is page 28, 6.2 congruent polygons. Okay. So that is your AMI work that you need to have completed. Okay. Remember, they're all for a grade. Now, the notes you're going to keep in your binder. I don't need those, but any work or anything you have to turn in with those, you need to turn in your corrections, your bell ringer sheet. And the other thing I need is your test reflection. Even if you didn't get it signed by your parents, I need your test reflection. And then if you did not meet your goal on your test, then you are required to take the retest. And you have been assigned mandatory tutoring until you do take the test retake.
I got all of it done with the corrections.
Okay.
If I did, then I don't remember doing it.
Okay, so tonight you'll go in and go look at 6.1 practice and do all the corrections, and then you can bring me that paper tomorrow.
Are they on this? Like, is it on the Chromebook?
It'll be on Big Ideas Math.
Oh.
You'll just go to Big Ideas Math and then go over to submitted assignments and find 6.1 practice and click on it. And it shows you every single problem you got wrong. And so you'll just open it up
And then write down the correct
and
one.
write down the correct answer.
Oh, this is stressful.
All right, so anything you have to turn in, make sure your name's on it, make sure everything's on there, and then go ahead and pass it to the front, and front row pass it to the right. Remember, if you still need to make that chapter 5 test, you have 2 days to come in and make that up.
If we don't have the work for the big ideas, we send it to you, we're fine.
Yeah, if you emailed it to me, you're fine. I'm gonna go through, my printer at home would not connect to my Chromebook.
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm gonna take off from this either.
So I couldn't print off stuff, so like any kind of work that people email to me, I couldn't print it off. And I don't like, just looking online and grading it because I make a ton of mistakes or I might miss something. So I'm gonna print everything off today and go through and mark everything off.
Yeah, I think I sent you everything. Can I go on a list for real quick?
Yeah, some people did send me stuff, but I knew some people probably just did not have a good enough internet connection. Oh yes, I also need this. Some people have not turned this in. 6.1 puzzle time, this was from Tuesday. I need this as well. A lot of you did turn it in, but a couple of you did not. This is a worksheet that I've graded, 6.1 puzzle time. Let me get my grade book out and I can tell you exactly who has not turned in that worksheet.
Just
6.1 puzzle time worksheet, I do not have Natalie Boland's, Bailey's, Nick's, or Grace's. Those are the 4 people that need to turn in the 6.1 puzzle time worksheet.
I didn't know that.
Did you email it to me? Okay. Yeah, like I said, I will be going through, you can just pass it over. I'll be going through and printing everything off today that was emailed to me. Alright, so 6.1 puzzle time worksheet, test reflection, did I tell you to pass up your bell ringer sheet? Bell ringer sheet, your 6.1 corrections, and any of the AMI work that you didn't get done needs to get done today and brought to me tomorrow to make sure it's all submitted today.
A bunch of my teachers posted stuff for us to do Thursday and Friday, but technically we weren't supposed to do it, right?
You didn't have to. They probably just had it all ready to go, but Thursday and Friday were considered snow days and we were told not to send any new work. Now, I had thought about just sending work just to let some people get ahead. That way, whenever you come back, like some people could be getting caught up and you could be, I don't know. But we were just told not to send out anything new Thursday or Friday.
Okay, because a bunch of my teachers did not work in December, and I didn't do it.
All right, so let's go ahead and close our Chromebooks and get out your notes that I'll pass back to you. This is going to be page 29 of your notes, page 29. And this is 6.2 congruent polygons. Again, this is just more of what you did on last Wednesday whenever you took notes. It says students will be able to identify and use corresponding parts of congruent polygons. All right, so corresponding parts. What corresponding parts are? It says corresponding. Notice there's some fill in the blank that you need to fill in on the students or on teacher notes. It says corresponding sides and corresponding angles of congruent figures are congruent. So I'll give you a moment to fill in the blank and then I'll explain to you what that means. Corresponding sides and corresponding angles of congruent figures are congruent. Okay, so notice you have a picture right underneath that. Okay. So on that picture, you'll see that a bunch of angles and stuff are marked, but right here, I don't know if you can see that. Let me pull this down a little bit. This right here is called a congruence statement. And if I could get you to write that over there on student notes, that means triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. So triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. So write that over there on student notes. I took the pictures and put them over to the left to give you some more room to write. Triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. Okay, so if triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF, then that means every angle in triangle ABC is congruent to a corresponding angle in triangle DEF. Every side in ABC is congruent to the corresponding side on DEF. Now, a lot of times they will have a marked congruent, and so you can tell exactly which angles correspond to each other. Okay, so for instance, see how angle A has one mark? Then that means angle D has one mark. That means angles A and D are congruent. So underneath your congruent statement, I need you to put that angle A is congruent to angle D. Angle A is congruent to angle D. And the reason I could tell that is because angle A has one arc and angle D has one arc. That means they're congruent. Another way you can tell, sometimes they don't mark them on here. Another way that you can tell what two angles are corresponding, where is A listed in the congruent statement for triangle ABC? It's at the beginning. Where is D listed at? At the beginning. So notice they're in the same position. So A and D are in the same position. That means they're congruent. They're corresponding. So not even looking at this, what angle corresponds to angle B? B is in the middle, so it's going to correspond to the one over here that's in the middle. So which letter's in the middle over here? E. So that means B and E are congruent. But if you look here, look how many marks B has. It has 3. And look how many E has. It also has 3. So you can tell either way. You can either tell by how many marks they have, or you can tell by the congruent statement. So then you'd want to write down that angle B is congruent to angle E. And then what angle, Brett, would you say that angle C is congruent to? Perfect. How did you tell?
The third number.
Yeah, they're both the third letter. They're both the third angle listed. So that means they're corresponding to each other. You could have also noticed it by C having 2 and F having 2. Okay, so that's all the corresponding angles that are congruent. Also, their sides are congruent. Okay, look at right here at this side here, BC. It has one mark on it. So segment BC is congruent to, find the segment over here that has one mark, which is EF. So BC would be congruent to EF. 1, 1. Now, your congruent statement also tells you which sides are congruent. Let me write this down here a little bit. Triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. Okay. This also tells you which sides are congruent. See how BC is listed second? It's going to be congruent with the the sides that are listed here, EF. So see how BC and EF are in the same position? You can tell by that also. Another way, another pair of sides that are congruent, let's see, AB has 2, ED has 2. So segment AB is congruent to segment DE. AB is congruent to DE. Notice how AB is the first 2 letters and DE are the first 2 letters. So they're in the same position. And then you have one more pair of sides. Let me get a different color. That's this side, AC and DF. So AC is congruent to DF. Okay. Notice in your congruent statement, AC, DF. So you can either get your sides and angles, your corresponding sides and corresponding angles by which ones are marked, or by your congruent statement. Okay. These are all the corresponding parts. So if it tells you to list all the corresponding parts. That means list all the angles that are congruent and list all of the sides that are congruent. And if it asks for a congruent statement, that is your congruence statement. Okay, so make sure on your paper, make sure you have it titled which one's your congruent statement and which one's your corresponding parts. So that way you'll know when your directions say, write a congruent statement for the polygon or for the figure. You'll know what they're asking for. If it says list all the corresponding angles and sides or list all the corresponding parts, you'll know it's asking for the angles and the sides. All right, on to one of the theorems we're going to use today. Maybe. Third angle theorem. Third angles theorem. Notice for third angles theorem over there on teacher notes, notice there's some fill in the blank. You're going to need to fill those in. What that says is if two angles, let me see which part. Okay. If two angles of one triangle are congruent to two angles of another triangle, then the third angles are congruent. If two angles of one triangle are congruent to two angles of another triangle, then the third angles are also congruent. So if you know two of the angles are congruent, then you can automatically say the third angle is congruent. So see how B and E are congruent and A and D are congruent? You can automatically just go ahead and mark C and F congruent. Okay, so if two of them's marked congruent, the third one's got to be, because they have to add up to 180. So if this is, say, 40 and this is 100, this would also have to be 40 and this would also have to be 100. Well, to figure out this angle, you would do 100 plus 40, which is 140, and 180 minus 140 is 40. Same here, 100 plus 40 is 140, and 180 minus 140 is 40. So they would have to be congruent. They'd have to be the same. So if two angles are marked congruent, just go ahead and mark that third angle congruent, because the third angle theorem. And if you want to, anytime you have to explain, if you want to put TAT, I'm okay with that. Okay, now let's do an example. It says, write a congruent statement for the triangles. Identify all pairs of congruent corresponding parts. All right, so first I need to write a congruent statement. The first triangle that you list, you can put it in any order you want to. You can do alphabetical order. You can do order of the arcs. It doesn't matter. Just put whatever order you want to. I'm going to do it alphabetically. I'm going to do triangle JKL. So triangle JKL is congruent to triangle. Now I can't just go in any order over here now. I have to base it off of this first one. Okay. So I look to see J and I try to figure out which angle it's congruent to. Because if J is listed first, its angle, corresponding angle, has to be listed first. J has 2 marks, so I find which one over here has 2, which is T. So I have to put T first since I put J first. And then K has 3, so the next one would have to have 3, which is S. And then L has 1, so the next one that has 1 is R. So triangle JKL is congruent to triangle TSR. That's my congruent statement. Okay. Now it says list all the corresponding pairs of congruent corresponding parts. I like to do angles first. It really doesn't matter. You can do angles or sides, whichever one you want to do it. I can either look off my picture and pick out the corresponding angles, or I can look at this. J and T correspond, so I would say angle J is congruent to angle T, angle K is congruent to angle S, and angle L is congruent to angle R. I like to do those first, just because to me those are easier. Now when I list the sides, I can either go off of how many marks they have. So I can see that JK and ST each have 1 mark, so that means they're congruent, so they would be corresponding. Or I can just do it based off of this. So JK and TS, see how they're both listed first? That means they're congruent. So segment JK is congruent to segment TS. And then the next one would be KL and SR. So segment KL is congruent to segment SR. And then the third side is always the outer 2 letters, JL and TR. And those are all my corresponding sides. And you can also look off the picture, see how KL has 2, SR has 2, JL has 3, and TR also has 3. So whichever is easier for you, looking off the statement or looking off the picture. All right, what questions do you have for me? Let's try one together. It says in the diagram. It says write another congruent statement for the triangles. Identify all pairs of congruent corresponding parts. So the reason why it says another is because it's already listed one congruent statement. Triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. Okay, now what I would do, because it wants a different one, it wants it in a different order. So like instead of ABC, they want you to do like CBA or BAC or BCA. Okay, what I would do is if they haven't marked the angles congruent, I would go ahead and do that. So like if they didn't have A and D marked, I would mark A and D congruent. And then I would mark B and E congruent and C and F congruent, just so I know which angles correspond to each other. Okay. Then after I have the angles marked, then I can write my other congruent statement. All right, so Grace, this first triangle, remember it doesn't matter the order. We just have to do a different one than ABC. So tell me what you want to do. BCA, so triangle BCA is congruent to triangle. Okay, so she did it in BCA. So now we have to base this triangle, this part based off of hers. So since she put B first, Brett, which letter am I going to have to put first over here?
F.
I got to put F first. Okay, Taylor, you agree with that?
No.
Which one do you say?
Wait, isn't it E? Or no? I don't know. I think E.
Bailey, who do you agree with? Taylor? Okay. Well, let's look and see. Whatever angle's here, it has to be congruent to the angle that's here. So angle B has 2. So we find the one over here that has 2, which is E. So E would actually have to go first. So good job. Okay, so then now that C is in the middle, Natalie, which one would have to be in the middle over here? F. Abby, do you agree with that? Yep. Yeah, because C has 1 mark and F has 1 mark. And C and F are in the same position before. And then Nick, which letter does that leave us to go last? D. And Maddie, do you agree with that? Perfect. Okay. That's our other congruent statement. Now we need to list corresponding angles and sides. It's up to you which one we do first. Natalie, which one do you want to do first, angles or sides? Angles, okay, give me a pair of corresponding congruent angles. B and E, so angle B is congruent to angle E. Okay, Natalie, you agree with that? All right, Natalie, give me another pair of congruent corresponding angles. Say that again. A and D. Do you agree with that? Is that what you were going to say? Lakin, give me another pair. Sydney, do you agree with that one?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So that's all the angles. Like I said, to me, that's the easiest part. Now for the sides. Two different ways you can do this. You can either look off here and say that AB and DE are together, which is fine, or you can mark them and then go off of that. So if you do that, see how AB is listed first, so I put one mark first, and then DE would have to correspond to that, so I would put one mark on DE. Okay. Then you would do your second set. BC would have to go with EF. So if I put 2 marks on BC, I would have to put 2 marks on EF. And then the third side is always the outer 2 letters, AC. So I'm going to put 3 there. And then DF would have 3. Now we can list the sides. So I'm going to do the first side with one AB. And it's congruent to DE. AB is congruent to DE. Alright, Sydney, give me another pair of sides.
AC is congruent to DF.
AC is congruent to DF. Grace, you agree with that? Alright, Grace, give me the third set of sides. BC is congruent to EF. Brett, you agree with that? Perfect. Man, remember whenever we were in chapter 1 and the only thing we had to do was learn how to name a segment? Like, all we had to do was name this segment, and it was segment AB. Now look at all the work we're doing. But that's just a little bitty part of it. Okay, what questions do you have on congruent statements or corresponding parts of congruent triangles? Or even polygons. This works for polygons. You can have a quadrilateral that has 4 angles and 4 sides. Then you would just have to list all 4 angles and all 4 sides. Alright, to the next part. It says, in the diagram, show that triangle PTS is congruent to triangle RTQ. In order to show that something's congruent, I need you to write a mark at the side or write a note to the side. You can either do it in the corner or right outside the box. To show that 2 triangles are congruent, you need to show that all corresponding angles and sides are congruent. So in order to show that 2 triangles or 2 polygons are congruent, you need to show that all angles are congruent and all sides are congruent. All corresponding angles are congruent and all corresponding sides are congruent. Now, sometimes they have a marked congruent. So then if they're already marked congruent, then you don't have to do anything. So like if you see that 2 angles are marked, you don't have to say anything for it because it's already marked. But if they're not marked, you need to figure out a way that they are congruent. Okay. So here, first thing I'm going to look at is their sides. We're going to look to see if any of their sides are marked congruent. Well, notice PS and QR are already marked congruent because they only have 1. ST and TQ are already marked, and PT and TR are already marked. So all 3 sides have already been listed congruent. So I don't have to worry about the sides. They're all congruent, and they're marked. It's already given to us. Now I need to figure out some way that these angles are congruent. Right away, in these 2 triangles, PTS and QTR. Right away, I see that I have a pair of vertical angles. Okay, so I see I have a pair of vertical angles. So once you see that two angles are congruent, go ahead and put the arcs on there showing they're congruent. And then over to the side, I need to say how they're congruent. So I need to say what two angles they are and how they're congruent. Now I can't just call this angle T and angle T because there's a bunch of different angles here at angle T. So I have to go all the way back to like chapter 2 and remember how to name an angle. This angle would be named angle PTS. Remember you put the vertex in the middle and then a point on each side. So we would say that angle PTS is congruent to angle QTR, and that's because they're vertical. So I can tell you that those two angles are congruent because they're vertical. That is the very first thing you want to look for in a figure is vertical angles. Anytime you got to show that two triangles are congruent, look and see if there's some vertical angles. Okay. Then, something else you want to check for whenever you're having a list if angles are congruent are parallel lines. How do I know that this line is parallel to this line? Yeah, this arrow. Remember all the way back from chapter 3, parallel lines and transversals? We're going to use that. Okay? Pretend like this line here is going on indefinitely. And pretend this line here is also going on indefinitely. And then, let's forget about this line and just look at this one. So I have two lines that look like this, and they're transversal that looks like that. That's all the way back from chapter 3. Okay? If you recall, this one here, that's this angle, and that one here is this angle. Remember alternate interior angles? And we know that alternate interior angles are congruent if the two lines are parallel. So I can say that this angle here and this angle are congruent because they're alternate interior angles. Okay, so let me erase my line so that way this does not confuse you that bad. Okay. So anytime you have parallel lines, look for parallel lines. If you do, you're going to be looking for alternate interior angles. And let me put 2 marks there. Okay. So I can say that angles P and R are congruent because they are alternate interior angles. So angle P is congruent to angle R because they are alternate interior angles. If you have a pair of lines that's marked parallel, you're going to have alternate interior angles. And then we have one more set of angles to show congruent. Angle S and angle Q. There's your 2 lines and your transversal. These are also alternate interior angles. So you would say angle S is congruent to angle Q because of alternate interior angles. Now I have shown all 3 sides are congruent and all 3 angles are congruent. Yes, you could have also said the third angle theorem because if these 2 are congruent, then the third ones are automatically going to be congruent because of the third angle theorem. Yep. And that's the fun thing with geometry is there is no just one way to do it. That's why always go about explaining your reasoning why, because you may go about it a different way than what I did, so that way I need to. Just because yours is different than mine doesn't mean you're wrong. Alright, let's do this one together. It says, show that triangle ABD is congruent to triangle CDB. Explain your reasoning. Okay? So you have to show that all 3 sides and all 3 angles are congruent. Okay. Which do y'all want to do first? Do y'all want to do the angles first or the sides first? Do you have a preference? Okay. I Alright, so angles, let's do angles. A and C should be congruent. A and C are marked congruent. B and D should be congruent. There's B, there's D. And then D and B. So this angle D, which is angle ADB, this angle here, somehow needs to be marked congruent to this angle here. Would you say that those two angles are congruent? And if so, why? Yeah, perfect. So you can say they're congruent by the third angle theorem. Now we can't just say D and B. We would have to say that angle ADB, that's this angle here, is congruent to angle CBD by third angle theorem. And you can put TAT. You could have also said alternate interior angles because these two sides are marked parallel. So it's also by alternate interior angle theorem. Alright, now for the sides. I have AD and BC marked congruent and AB and DC. Somehow I need to show that this side of this triangle is congruent to this side of this triangle. So I need to say that DB is congruent to DB. See how DB, it's the same side. If it's the same exact side, is it going to be congruent to itself? Sure. If I have a segment that's 3 inches and I take this segment, I'd say, okay, this piece of paper, it's 11 inches. Can I say that this side is congruent to this side? Are they both going to be 11 inches? Yeah, it's called the reflexive property. You would say by reflexive. If you look in the mirror, are you going to see the exact same thing that you're actually there as long as nothing's messed with the mirror? You're going to be congruent to yourself. Reflexive. So if they have if it's the same angle or the same side, they're automatically going to be congruent because it's itself. You're always congruent to yourself. Alright, we will pick those up tomorrow. Make sure you keep up with them. Don't forget to turn in your AMI work tomorrow and enjoy the rest of your day. Don't forget to get your phones.
Something different.